back to the Common Fan podcast. And then there were four: India, England, Afghanistan, and somehow inexplicably South Africa. The fact that we're more surprised about South Africa's inclusion than Afghanistan tells you how far the Ghannis have come. We are four teams and 3 games away from finding out who will be the T20 champions for 2024. What we do know is that the host West Indies and the US and Australia definitely won't be there, and thank God for that. Before we get into it, a reminder, please subscribe to our show by clicking on the subscribe button right below us. Also, we would love to hear from all our common fans, so please send your comments in via email or the comment section in this video. Let's get straight into it, and we've got this and a lot more. So we have our usual suspects: Manan Puri, Vijay Rangarajan, and Ritvik Shekhar. So Vijay, before we start, congratulations on your song for Kalki 2898 AD with Diljit Dosanjh. So I've got a couple of questions for you. Question number 1, what have your thoughts been on the 2020 World Cup so far? And 2, is Diljit a fan of the Common Fan podcast? Segue into that, how is his bowling like?
Right, thanks, PK. That was a great introduction and feels good to be back on this podcast. It's been a while. So welcome to all our viewers and listeners. Look, thanks. It was great actually singing that song for Kalki 289880, and I did not expect to be sharing title credits with Diljit Dosanjh. So that's quite the surprise. I would encourage all of you to go listen to the song. It's called Bhairava Anthem. And after that self-promotion, I will say I haven't had a chance to actually interact with Diljit in person or even virtually. So I did not get a chance to ask him about the Common Fan podcast. But my gut feeling tells me that he is more invested in the Canadian team than he would be in the Indian team if he were to support cricket. So, and considering they aren't in the World Cup anymore, so maybe not the right question to ask. But I will remember to bring that up when I get a chance to meet him, hopefully around the film's release. In terms of the World Cup itself, I think there was a bit of a lull phase before the World Cup, and not a lot of people seemed very interested in the World Cup. But with like any ICC events, I think it's gradually picked up steam, and it's also captured the imaginations of a lot of fans of the game, because Afghanistan have made the semis, and quite a few of the usual suspects have been knocked out before they could even make any noise in this World Cup. New Zealand, for instance, and of course Pakistan, predictably, Sri Lanka. And Bangladesh did Bangladesh things this time around. So it's been entertaining to watch. And I love the fact that there are games at 6 a.m. India time, and then there are games conveniently scheduled for an Indian audience at 8 p.m. India time. And it's always India playing the 8 p.m. games and all the other countries playing the 6 a.m. games. I'm not complaining at all, but it feels good to be waking up early to watch cricket matches. That having said, I did miss that game where Afghanistan beat Australia. I woke up at 10, and by then the WhatsApp groups were popping off. But to summarize, I think it's been a very interesting World Cup, and we are in those final 3 games, and it's really nicely poised, because come what may, we're going to see a new finalist for the first time ever in the Cricket World Cup, because South Africa is playing Afghanistan, and neither of these teams have made the final in the World Cup. So it's going to be really fun to watch a World Cup final. We've all wanted South Africa to make the finals, right? So yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Ritvik? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. And just had a thought that you and Diljit Dosanjh singing together is somehow like Ashwin and Bhaji bowling together in tandem.
So, I like that.
So I think I've got one reason to watch Kalki in theater, and that's not the visuals, but the fact that our fellow podcaster has sung a song in that movie. So that said, I realized yesterday that there have been some 48, 50 odd matches this World Cup, and I've barely managed to keep track of half a dozen of them. And probably because the timings have been a little off, there have been rain interruptions. And in the beginning, a lot of these matches were played by associate nations or minnows, and something which I was not really keeping a track of. But interestingly, one of these so-called minnows has managed to beat a few teams on its way and has reached the semi-finals. And
about South Africa there, Ritvik?
No, I was just going to say that South Africa has to be very, very worried, because they are taking on a rampaging Afghanistan, which not just has some brilliant cricketers, brilliant spinners, but one of the best actors in the world right now as well. Like if you saw the video where Gulabdin Naib just fell down after watching Trot signaling that he needs to slow down. The game needs to be slowed down. It was hilarious. And there was a comment by Ian Smith that I've had a dodgy knee for the last 6 months. And the first thing that I'm going to do after this game is to see Gulabdin Naib's therapist. And so it's been very interesting. And I think it's something like the great revenge which has been taken in the last 1 week. Australia had definitely broken hearts across two countries back in November. One was against Afghanistan when Maxwell went on one leg and scored that crazy double hundred, and then we all know what happened on the 19th November. So it's definitely the two countries from the Indian subcontinent coming together and taking revenge against the formidable Aussies. And I really like the way before this World Cup somebody asked Pat Cummins that who do you think the four semi-finalists are going to be, and he said Australia, and I don't care who the other three are. So huge fan of Pat Cummins, but it's nice to see the Aussies out of the knockouts. And I watched the game where Rohit Sharma went on a rampage against Australia, and he seemed like a man on a mission, like somebody who really wanted to give it back. And we have seen Rohit Sharma speak about how much the World Cup loss hurt him when it happened in November. And while we have been crying for the last 6 to 8 months, we can't even imagine what Rohit Sharma would have gone through. So while India is yet again in an ICC semi-final, I'm telling myself that we are not winning this World Cup, just to keep my hopes in order. What do you think,
Yeah.
PK?
Fair enough, fair enough. I gotta say, I think it's been a great T20. The game's officially entered the US, and the patrons are predominantly still immigrant from the Commonwealth nations. I reckon it's probably going to take another 5-10 years for the ICC to break into the market. Cricket's coming into the 2028 Olympics. So, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, World Cup winners and Olympic gold medalists, perhaps. That being said, having Saurabh Netravalkar's face in the US would go a long way. But spare a thought for Unmukt Chand, right? The bloke wins an under-19 Cricket World Cup for India, moves to the US, doesn't get selected, and then has his thunder stolen by a musician working in Oracle. On that note, Manan, 30 seconds for you. On that note, if you get out on a duck to a principal software engineer working in Oracle, would you think it's now time to call it quits?
Well,
Golden duck.
no, I got bowled fair and square once by a founder of a bootstrapped recruitment startup, and we were playing in the nets, and I still didn't quit cricket. It was Ritvik, the bowler, by the way. So that won't happen. I think, of course, it's a good sign that Virat got bowled by, or Virat got out to Saurabh for a duck, because great players do that. If you look at Sachin's record, I think about 15 odd or 20 odd debutants first wicket is Sachin Tendulkar. So that way, I think it's a good omen. Virat, of course, we know he's a great player anyway, but still, some way to go to touch God's greatness. So probably he's heading there. So I won't be too worried about it. I'm generally worried about Virat's form. I'm sure he'll come good in the semi-final. But till then, I'm okay with getting out to whoever it is.
One thing that's the downside of all of this is that bloke can never walk into a bar in the US and use that as some kind of an introductory line, because they'll be like, who's Virat Kohli? And what do you mean I got his wicket? I got him on duck out. Like, none of that line would ever go anywhere. Moving on. One of the biggest upsets in the 2020 World Cup was the United States versus Pakistan. But given how Pakistan actually plays, I don't even know if you can call that an upset. But on Sunday, we had an upset for the ages. Australia versus Afghanistan. We thought we knew how this was going to end. The money always was on Australia. And while Maxi was there, this seemed like a repeat of November 2023. Afghanistan gave it as good as they got. And once Maxwell got out, a whisper of an Afghanistan win becomes a roar. 48 hours later, they gave a game for the ages when they beat Mannan's favorite side, Bangladesh. Mannan, you seem really, really sad with the results. So let's get started with you. Where do the Ghanis go from here? And to also ask Ritwik's question, do you think Gulbadin's acting puts Amir Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, and Salman Khan acting together to shame?
Of course, I'm sad, as you can see from my face and my voice, that Bangladesh have been kicked out of another World Cup. Uh, Having said that, to slow things down, as Jonathan Trott wanted Naib to do, acting skills brilliant. Of course, he played his part in the thick of things. Then he started running, so it always reminded me of Welcome's डायलॉग दैट मेरी एक टांग नकली थी मैं हॉकी का बहुत बड़ा प्लेयर था ट्रॉट भाई ने जब से मुझे कहा फिर मैं गिर गया so that was just awesome and yes there are a lot of talks about the spirit of the game and whatnot but I think it was Bangladesh that it was against that's absolutely fine they could have timed any batsman out probably snatched or hit wicket or whatever anything goes when you're playing against Bangladesh as long as they're not winning so spirit of the game be damned there having said that there was not just one trick of genius by the Afghans that night. It was the last ball when Bravo waited for the camera to be panned on him, and then he started doing like this to the bowlers that they wanted to bowl bouncers to Mustafizur. And that is why probably Mustafizur, even though he's a tail ender, was on the back foot when he started, facing, I don't remember who the bowler, Naveen Ulhaq, of course. Uh, so stroke of genius, great fielding. It was just an awesome game, and that's why my background is the way it is. Of course, I'm rooting for Afghanistan again for the semifinals. So yeah, great game. Vijay, what are your thoughts on how Afghanistan played?
Look, full credit to Afghanistan because I know this was a massively entertaining game, and it was not just about Afghanistan playing Bangladesh. I think the rain played as much significance as any individual player or contributor to this game. For once, the rain actually kept making things interesting. Every time there was a rain delay, one team or the other was on top, and you could never tell what was going to happen. Like the first rain delay, if the match got washed out, they had just bowled 3 overs, so it was Afghanistan. The second rain delay, Bangladesh were ahead. If the match got washed out, then it was Bangladesh, right? And it was the other thing I want to mention is Afghanistan's overall performance. Look, while all of this happened, at the end of the day, Afghanistan did not leave any room for excuses, like including Gulbadin Naib's acting thingy, right? Now, all of that did not matter in the end because they won the game fair and square. They took 10 wickets, they took 10 Bangladeshi wickets, and that's how they won the game, right? And I think that's why they deserve full credit and they completely deserve to be in the semi-final. Now, with respect to Gulbadin's acting skills, I would like to disagree with the rest of you here that he has great acting skills. He actually, in my opinion, he has shit acting skills. I mean, the coach, beckons to him from there to slow things down. And the idiot actually acknowledges and then goes down. It's like, oh, heard you. Oops.
No, he was not acknowledging. He was just trying to stop the game.
I don't know. That's one way of interpreting it. Look,
I think he was
I'm like,
calling for the stretcher.
your acting skills are shit, but your entertainment skills are 100%, right? So that's what matters in the end. And I know the Bangladeshis tried to come to the party with a bit of sledging and with a bit of send-offs and all of that. But in the end, what bothered me about the way Bangladesh went about this game was they were actually 40, or rather they were 80 plus in 8 overs. And so they were actually on track to qualifying if they could chase that total down in 12.5 overs or 12.1 overs, which was the requirement. And then they suddenly played they couldn't care less. Now, you either play to win the game to qualify or, you lose. Like, what was the point of going for the win? My point is with the intent of the Bangladeshi team. And this has been a constant grouse that all of us have had with Bangladesh. They do show promise, but then, there's something in that mentality and that thinking. I feel like it's very restricted thinking and that needs to change. I hope, they get a really good coach because individually there are a lot of really good players in Bangladesh. Let's give them that amount of credit. But having said that, trust them to make things interesting when it comes to an ICC tournament. They're usually the ones that throw a bit of entropy into the qualification stages. So I'm totally glad they did that because till the last few minutes of the game, or rather the last half an hour of the game, it was any of the three teams that would have qualified. So kudos to Bangladesh for keeping it interesting, and congratulations to Afghanistan for actually making it to the semis. Those are my thoughts on this. What do you
Vijay,
think?
it's karma. It's karma. Sorry, I'm butting in. It's karma. They didn't want to win the game and get into the semifinals. All they wanted was probably to get Afghanistan out of the semifinals.
Exactly.
It's just that, Nick. Yeah.
That's not going to work. That's a very negative way of looking at things, right? Ritvik, what are your thoughts?
So I'll digress a bit, and there's a little bit of trivia that I wanted to share. So there was an 84-year-old gentleman who passed away a week back on 21st June, and the gentleman was born in the UK in Lancashire. He went on to study physics from from the University of Liverpool, and also did a PhD in metallurgy. Uh, the gentleman was somebody called Frank Duckworth, one of the inventors of the Duckworth-Lewis scoring system, and probably the rain-marred World Cup with so many results being affected by rains and being decided by the Duckworth-Lewis system was uh, a way of the cricketing gods to pay a tribute to him. So a little bit of sad news on this front, but honestly, I never bothered to look up what the gentleman called Duckworth and Lewis, where the gentleman called Duckworth and Lewis came from. But a little bit of trivia here. So interesting times, like the Bangladesh and Afghanistan game was, I think, the most thrilling game of the World Cup, probably second only to the Afghanistan and Australia game. But for a moment we actually thought that Bangladesh is going to pull it off, but we were all hoping that it doesn't happen, because somehow Afghanistan manages to get a lot of support from India. Like there are a lot of people who cheer for Rashid Khan. There are a lot of people who cheer for this lady called Wazma as well. So really happy to see Afghanistan in the semifinals. And I'm like, if I had to choose between Afghanistan and South Africa from the semifinal lineup, I think it's 60% in favor of Afghanistan, knowing South Africa's track record in knockouts like these. So I am hoping for an India versus Afghanistan final, and hoping that India gets it easy in the final game. What do you guys think? What's your prediction for the knockouts?
Before we get to the knockouts, I just want to. I am hoping, Ritvik, that your words come true and Wazma makes a bit of a pit stop at the West Indies grounds. I think where are they playing the final? Oh, they're playing at Trinidad and Tobago. I think the semi-final, and then the final somewhere else. But hopefully, she gets visas and tickets and everything. And I'm sure, Ritvik, you're looking forward to sponsoring her tickets. If she gets that. Let's talk about the other team. Let's talk about Australia. And I actually want to say to our Australian cricket fans who are watching, after losing to the West Indies at the Fortress Gabba and now Afghanistan, maybe Australia should take a break from top-class cricket and spend some years playing some associate nations, Uganda, Netherlands, Canada as well even. And it's not a bad thing to say that your skill level has dipped. And maybe after a couple of years, you probably may have what it takes to be back at the elite level. So I'm just also wondering whether India should refuse to tour here, because Australia aren't really that good anymore. So now that we've said that, and now we're going to get some hate mail, I want to get your opinions on this, guys. So after the victory on Tuesday, many started explaining that India, got revenge for November 2023. Do you guys really think so? What happened a couple of days ago effectively was a dead rubber from India's perspective, right? I mean, more often, apart from net run rate and stuff, India was pretty much through. Don't get me wrong, Rohit Sharma played a blinder of an innings. That 29 he spanked off Mitchell Starc was some sheer good entertainment. Or, Bumrah, or as we will now call him, Lord Boom Boom Bumrah, was magnificent. This doesn't even come close to the heartbreak of 2023, right? What do you guys think? Do you reckon revenge was had?
There's no healing that wound. There's no healing that wound. Come on, man. As much as I would like to believe it, the wounds of 1996 Eden Gardens haven't healed yet.
2003 hasn't healed. 2023 hasn't healed. Now, look, I honestly don't think the matchup was the same as the final in the 23 World Cup, simply because, like you said, PK, that game was probably inconsequential for India. We as a team were not going to lose by such a big margin that we would not qualify for the semis. So it would have been Australia or another team that we would end up facing in the final or in the semis. So basically, I just think, like you said, it was a dead rubber. So Australia maybe, look, if it were a semi-final that we were facing Australia, and I honestly think it would have been a different Australian team, different mentality that they bring to these crunch games. So us as Indian fans are emotional. The Australians are cold. I think that's where lies the difference. The Australians play to win. We play with a lot of baggage around what happened in the past. And, I see a lot of people on social media claiming this was sweet revenge. It was, we shut Pat Cummins down. I really don't think Pat Cummins even cares about the comments that he made about,
Let's go
making
to
it
World Cup. He
quarterfinals.
can shut him down as
Also,
much as
guess
he
what?
wants.
Pat Cummins is not the captain of the Australian side. It's Mitch Marsh. So nobody, if Pat Cummins never grandstanded about, taking the Australian team to a final, right? He won them the cup. That's it's simple as that. So I really think us fans should stop being so emotional and start looking at how we can build this team, irrespective of how the World Cup goes, because I don't think anybody after recent heartbreak harbors a lot of hope about India winning this World Cup either. I know it's at the back of our minds, but till the last
No,
World
it's
Cup
not.
final, yeah, it's
It's
not,
not.
right? Yeah. So I think we should stick to that and look at how we can improve as a team. So those are my thoughts on that. What do you think, Manan?
Yeah, so see, I think the last time PK gave this spiel about Australia not doing well and they're at the bottom of the table, etc. They came back ruthlessly to win the World Cup.
That's
This time
because PK
around,
is a fake Australian, right? He
yes,
knocks the team down, secretly hoping that they win the cup.
they
That's
win.
PK for you.
Like that's what we are trying to do with India, right? We're just hoping we are not hoping that we will win, but in hearts of heart we want them to, and it's a bad omen for us. So, and then now that you've commented, PK, about the fact that India should not tour Australia for the Border Gavaskar Trophy, you never know what's going to turn up when we reach
It's
there,
to that too.
right? So that's one. Apart from that, yeah, of course, like you guys said, it is not a revenge. Those wounds can never be healed no matter what we win. 96 wound was not healed by 2011, or 2003 wound was not healed in 2011 quarterfinal or anything else. That can never happen like that. So yes, good riddance. The only thing is that if you would have met them in semifinals or finals for that matter, then it was almost a sure shot thing that India is not winning. But thankfully, they are out. Thankfully, there is still a chance for India to do something here, because here we are, with an England team which is right now, they just scraped through the tournament, not in anybody's eyes. They were not playing great, etc. But they're there in the semifinals, away from the media limelight. Apart from the fact that Josh Hazelwood made them famous with this comment. But other than that, it is still tough game. So thoughts on the semifinals now, guys?
Fair enough. I
Honestly,
think
I,
one
I just
quick
I, I'll
tidbit,
just come in middle. Honestly, the only time I felt that a little bit of healing has happened was in the 2011 quarterfinal, because Ricky Ponting again got 100. It was a knockout game in a World Cup. Sachin Tendulkar was still playing. This time Sachin got a 50, a good one. And fortunately, this time we ended up winning. So that's when I remember feeling that a little bit of healing has happened. And if I'm not mistaken, the dates are also very similar. The 2003 World Cup final happened on 23rd March, and it was
Yeah.
4th March on which the 2011
Yes.
quarterfinal was
Yes.
played. So it was a
And I
little
was preparing for CAT then. Actually, GMAT that time.
and now you're coaching people for GMAT.
and now you're
Yes.
coaching. That's right. That's right. A very Gambhir-esque way.
Manan is actually Gambhir.
Yeah. Manan is Gambhir's been Manan's idol is Gambhir. Anyway, just before we go to the semifinals, I'll give you a quick tidbit, and then we can go. Hazelwood, he's going to be 35 by the next tournament. David Warner, as you know, is retired, and he is pursuing a career in Telugu movies. Matthew Wade is 36 now. Glenn Maxwell will be 37. Marcus Stoinis and Mitchell Stark, 36. Captain Mitch Marsh will be 34. And Pat Cummins will be the youngest of them all at 32 by the time of the next tournament. I think, and I'll leave this as an open comment for our viewers to probably put in the things, I think we've seen the last of some of the Aussie greats and probably world greats in white ball cricket, especially given the 2020 is a 2-year thing now and the World Cup is in 4 years. So I think, some of these names come 2026, we will be wondering, where that kind of batting power went. So it was great seeing what they did over the past couple of months. Okay, boys, it's the pointy end of the tournament, and it's a good segue from the previous discussion as well. If the Tuesday's game was revenge, as some would call it, I wonder what we're going to call the semi-final. After all, it was the same opposition in the same classification of the match and the same format just under 2 years ago in my hometown of Adelaide. That India were completely outclassed. England gave us a right royal spanking, and we didn't enjoy it, obviously. This time around, the Poms got through the skin of their teeth. I think, as Manan and Ritik mentioned, they've got through the skin of their teeth, and they've really come into their stride after beating the West Indies. We also have, as we all know, Afghanistan versus South Africa in just over 12 hours from now. The Proteas have nearly lost 6 of their games, right? They only one game they won convincingly. They nearly lost 6 of their games, but they're currently unbeaten in the tournament. Vijay, as a closet RCB fan who on more than one occasion has said Kaveri Namadu, do you think it's South Africa's time to say Isala in Afrikaans? And can India finally taste some ICC silverware?
I've said Kaveri Namde, and that's from a Chennai perspective, not from an RCB perspective, right? So I'd just like to clarify that to our viewers. So the Kaveri also runs in Tamil Nadu, and I can see PK has switched his camera off at the thought of that. Look, South Africa, what do we say about them? They've been here before. They've been to many a semi-final. It's the question of whether they'll go from there. And like Ritvik said, I also think Afghanistan are the favorites of that matchup. But no matter who makes it, I think I'm going to be happy for them because, like I said, it'll be a new team in the final for a change, right? With respect to India versus England, I was just looking at England's wins this time, and whenever they've won, it's not been a close win. They've actually won quite decisively in this World Cup. But they've lost to some of the bigger teams. Like I think they lost to the West Indies and they lost to Australia as well, and to South Africa, if I'm right. So sorry, they didn't lose to the West Indies. They lost to South Africa and Australia. Sorry, they lost to, what am I saying?
Australia.
Yeah. Cricket, Vijay, it's a game that's played between 2 teams, 11 people. I'm just trying to really dumb it down.
Thanks, mate. Just in case I forgot what this podcast was about. So my point is England are an unpredictable team at this point, but they do have a lot of good players who've come good during club situations. So it is going to be a very interesting matchup. And India, to be honest, our middle order has not been sufficiently tested in this World Cup, like most World Cups. And we've scraped through because of great bowling. Let's face it. And the conditions have been favorable, well, for bowling, right? So I'm just hoping all of these things again fall into place in the semis and we can make the finals. That's as simple as I would put it. I don't think there's one single player that's going to change the game around for India. It's going to be a team effort. And I've noticed that we've taken an approach of, sorry, I'm talking like Harsha Bogle, you're stating the obvious, but I quite like the fact that we've taken this approach of every batsman going for a quick fire 20 or 30 as opposed to hanging it out there and getting a big score. So I hope we continue those.
Yeah.
I think the only approach that India has, that every batsman goes out there and does whatever he feels like, and then there's a man called Jasprit Bumrah who's going to save us blushes while he has the ball in his hand. And he's one guy for whom I'm really hoping that India wins this World Cup. Like enough has been said about Virat and Rohit. Both of them have a World Cup each to his name. But the one guy who has been probably the best cricketer that India has produced in the last 4 to 5 years, that's Jasprit Bumrah. And I'm really hoping that India wins a World Cup for him.
Yeah, I think, but do you guys think there will be changes to the 11, given that Jadeja is clearly out of form, out of sorts?
There should be, yeah.
Dubey, contrary to the hate that he's getting on social media, I think he's done okay. It's not bad. He's not bowled much.
But I have a problem with the thinking behind playing Dubey over a because Dubey, I understand where he fits into the CSK scheme of things. There are other things that have to fit in place for Dhoni's process to include Dubey as one of the elements in it, right? For instance, the impact substitute rule, the existence of that rule, and the existence of, therefore the existence of better fielders and better bowlers. You should never give the ball to Dubey. You should never ask him to field. And you should not expect footwork out of him. He has to come in for those 10, 20 balls, stay in his crease and tonk the spinners for like 5 6s. That's his role in CSK. Now, if that's all you're expecting of him from the Indian team, then I think we are underselling that number 6 position or number 5 position that he's coming in. That's my thoughts on this. I think it should be a Rinku over Dubey, and it's a chance worth taking unless the Indian team's thinking about Panauti and luck and all that.
I don't think
I
they'll
think
change
it
that
should be
winning
Rinku over
combination.
Jadeja.
Yeah.
Jadeja
Jadeja clearly is out of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jadeja
absolutely.
is
Like
catch
Jadeja is also out of form, but what do you let's talk about Dubey. Do you guys think he should be in?
I think so.
How about
I think
Jadeja
so.
and Dubey going out and making way for, say, Yashasvi Jaiswal and Rinku? By the
See,
way, Rinku is not even in the
I'm
playing
playing
15.
Yashasvi in the middle order. Yashasvi is an opener.
That's fine. I
Should
think
Virat
Dubey
open?
been having a great opening, so you can push him down to 3.
Should Virat open?
Yeah, that's a good question.
He hasn't done well. On your question, Vijay, let me just bring you another stat, and I know I'm treading on Ritvik's territory here. The pitches at Guyana, which is where they're going to be playing the semi-final, right? Have traditionally had there've been more spinner wickets. So technically, it should probably suit Akshar, Kuldeep, and Jadeja. You could think that Joss Butler is probably going to go with Moeen Ali, Adil Rashid, and maybe Livingston. So if England go with 3 spinners, India goes with 3, do you think still Jadeja has a role to play? And, 3 spinners, who do we leave out? Well, there's a bloke at the top of the order that hasn't been hitting many runs, but then it's sort of like for like change.
See, honestly, jokes apart, like we all love taking a crack at Virat's T20 form, but he's one guy you really want in your side on the cricket ground when you're playing a high stakes game. Like you never know when Virat comes good. Again, I'm not very sure about what the thinking is in making Virat open because he's a guy who also knows how to finish a game. So I would have loved to see
Virat should do number 3 and bring Jaiswal, man, instead of Jadeja.
Correct.
Yeah. I would have loved to see that.
Bring Yashasvi as opener, take Jadeja out. I get your point about spinners, PK, but I still think we've got the firepower with respect to the bowling department. So 2 spinners are good for us. Or if at all, yeah. And then replace Dubey with Rinku. Sorry, we can't get Rinku in. He's not in the 15. He's actually in the reserve. So we can't.
Reserves.
We
need
Pandya,
somebody.
Yeah. Like break
Dr.
Dubey.
Sharma, Dr. Ravid, they have done that in the past.
Yeah.
Dubey will have to do a Gulbadin.
Yeah, just have a conversation with Gulbadin. He'll tell us what to do.
All right. Finally, guys, India versus England, Afghanistan versus South Africa. Pick me your winners and pick me your MVP, either for both games, but definitely for India versus England. I'll go first. I reckon India, heart says India, and the MVP probably going to be Akshar Patel. And Afghanistan, South Africa, hard to do, but I reckon Afghanistan's got it. Manan.
Of course, India's MVP, I'll go out on a limb and say Dubey, if he plays. And for Afghanistan game, I really want them to win. And this time around, I think, of course, Rashid will definitely do well. I think he's done it consistently. One more guy is Nabi, the old horse who's been around since 20 years, and just that pillar who's there. He's like electricity, I think, for Afghanistan. Where if he's not there, then only they realize that the guy is not there. Otherwise, there he's just lurking around. So my pick would be Nabi.
I'm going to go against the grain here and say I'm going to pick South Africa as favorites for the finals. I know, I did say earlier that Afghanistan will make it, but I have a feeling it's going to be South Africa. It's one of those gut things, right? And I feel like Klaasen's going to come good, Rabada's going to come good. And obviously picking India because my loyalties lie there. And again, I have a gut feeling that India is going to persist with Jadeja and he is going to be the MVP in that game.
So Afghanistan versus South Africa, I think it's 60-40 in favor of Afghanistan. I've usually suspect Rashid Khan. I expect him to bamboozle the South Africans. India, England, the heart says it doesn't want another heartbreak. So I'm going for England so that I'm in a good shape tomorrow evening once the match ends. And I don't care who the MVP is there. India is going to lose the match.
Well,
who's going to be England's MVP? Okay.
I think England's MVP is going to be Jonathan Trott from the Afghanistan and South Africa game.
But that's then South African MVP also.
Yeah,
then,
we'll
right?
do awards, guys. All right,
Then is
we'll do
Keshav
awards at the end of
Maharaj
the
the
World Cup,
Indian
and
MVP?
remember to have that category, right?
Is
Feel
Keshav
from each
Maharaj the
country.
OCI Indian MVP then?
Yeah.
Keshav Maharaj.
True.
Anyway, look, that's all we have time for on the Common Fan podcast. We've covered a lot of ground today. Thank you to my fellow podcasters, Vijay, Ritvik, and Manan. Once again, if you loved our show, please subscribe on the link below. If you have opinions on what we should do next, or if we're talking too much, please tell us in the comment section below, or email us at thecommonfan91@gmail.com. Have a great night or have a great evening. And as usual, have fun playing, watching, listening, or even talking about cricket. Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.